Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Development Hell podcast. And this is the Movie Club, and we're here to talk about the Jackie Robinson story 42 for our special 2013 episode. Now that, yes, this movie's 10 years old and a whole bunch of other movies. And this definitely was not the movie that I thought we'd be talking about out of everything that was nominated, but as you can probably tell by the baseball cap, I am a baseball fan, and you're going to learn a little bit about if anybody else here is. But we have Kevin, we got Vinnie, we have Joe, and we have Jim here to talk about Brian Helgeland's directorial effort 42, starring Chadwick Boseman, the late great Harrison Ford, and also the guy who makes chicken noises for Disney being extremely racist coach of the Philadelphia Phillies. But we'll get to that. But let's go around. So basically, everybody will give their general thoughts, how many times they've seen the film, and what's their relation to baseball. And Kevin, you're up.
So I'm not a huge baseball guy, but I do like it. Uh, I played it as a kid until I was maybe 11, 12 years old. I was always playing baseball. So I do have a history with the sport as a child, at least. I enjoy it. I like the teamwork that goes into it, and to see some of the things that Jackie Robinson had to be put through. Uh, it was a little rough to see. Overall, it was nice to see this movie and see how he progressed. Not being accepted at first, getting acceptance. I think it was a little bit of a generically told movie. All in all, I think the performances really carried it through. I overall liked it. It was solidly done.
How about you, Vinny?
So so this was my first time watching 42, and although I do agree with Kevin that it was, a pretty standard biopic. I thought visually they did just enough to make it interesting. I thought it had enough heart without being too syrupy, and it was, it was all in all, it was well made, and like Kevin said, the performances really do carry it through. And I believe this was Chadwick Boseman's breakout performance. And it is unfortunate that we lost him, like fairly, still in, early on in his career, because after 42, and then Black Panther, Da 5 Bloods, and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I mean, between those four movies, you really saw his real talent and charisma as an actor. And again, it's a shame we lost him so soon. But this as a breakout performance, this really was something that showed us what he was able to do. And my connection with baseball, I'm not really a baseball fan. I've been to only two major league games my whole life. I played just like um I'm not even sure if my town still has this, but we had like a just for like a t-ball league called Just for Fun Baseball. I did that for a couple of years in elementary school, and then I did a year of little league. I only got two hits that whole season. So clearly baseball wasn't the sport for me, but it was still fun to be a part of it. But yeah, that's my connection to the sport.
Ready? Joe.
Hey, 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 how's everybody doing tonight?
We're
I don't
doing great,
ever
Joe.
open up and say, hey, how's everyone doing? But no, I mean, as far as baseball goes, so I grew up in New York, and I feel like amongst the sports in New York, baseball is pretty big. So like you kind of had to do little league. You kind of just that's just what you did. So I did little league and then moved into New Jersey. And I guess I wasn't good enough to like do high school or middle school. I realized you actually had to like hit the ball more than 6 miles per hour. And I did particularly have a bit of a fear of the ball hitting me. I had a couple hits where it did mess with me a little bit, where it's like you still need to stay in the box when you're in the batter's box, or else that's not good. So like it didn't stick, but I always had an appreciation for baseball. Always had appreciation for the history. Didn't follow it as much as like football, like on TV. I think, and it's nothing, no offense to people that watch baseball more often than I do, it can get kind of boring. So when it comes to football, I know. Like when it comes to football or hockey, you got those action sports, basketball. You keep you on your toes, but then there's some games where it can go really, really long, and it's just, I guess as I get older, my patience gets a little bit slower. But anyways, let's talk about.
I'm right there with you.
Right? As I get older, my attention span gets much, much shorter. So lately, it's just the action sports. And yeah, I like to play golf, so I don't know. Bit of an anomaly there. But as far as the movie 42, I actually did see this in theaters when it came out, because around the time that was when I was starting my review series. But regardless of that, I was really curious because at the time there was a lot of praise for Harrison Ford's performance and Chadwick Boseman's performance. And around that time, I really felt like Harrison Ford this was before the Star Wars, The Force Awakens. So Harrison Ford was kind of having a bit of a blip in his career. Like he wasn't doing anything really big, or really there wasn't really like a resurgence in a sense. So seeing him in a good movie, a decent movie, was good. And the same thing goes for Chadwick Boseman, just as much as everybody else has mentioned. I think even before Black Panther came out and all of his later films, I think this really set the tone as far as like what he brings. And as mentioned before, it is a shame that he's gone, because he did bring what felt like a classic Hollywood, it could have been a Hollywood blockbuster actor, and I felt that in the sense when watching this film, especially when it comes to Jackie Robinson Jr. I mean, the man's a legend. So I think it's great that you have a character being played by a good actor.
Absolutely. And Jim.
First of all, Philly's hat is in my locker at work, and I am mad about it. Second of all, if the noise from the hotel is bleeding through, if somebody just coughs, I'll like on the microphone. All right, so baseball. I played baseball for like 10 years. I loved it. I look forward to opening day every year. And if I didn't hear Harry Callis's voice over the radio, like winter wasn't over yet. We used to get $5 tickets out of Philly's Frank's hot dogs from Sam's Club or whatever. So we'd like go and sit up in the nosebleed sections and bring binoculars. And I've been lucky enough to see the kind of new era of Phillies baseball, the Citizens Bank Park era, the more genteel era of Philly sports. A far cry from how Alan Tudyk, is that his name?
Yeah.
Represented the Phillies in this movie. I think Harrison Ford was my favorite part of the film, personally. It reminded me kind of a lot of Green Book. Like it was fine, and it was definitely, it fell on the good end of fine. I didn't think they softened it too much. There's still a heart to the film, like I think Vinnie said. And I do remember feeling at the end of the film like I would have been really proud to put the number 42 on as a ball player. So I feel like the movie's successful overall, if that's kind of the message that a baseball fan is left with. But it's not just for baseball fans either. So I'm glad you guys are a part of the discussion.
Yeah, I've been a diehard baseball fan since I was 10 years old. Been a Diamondbacks fan since I was 10 years old. So I'm riding high after this particular season. when they got to the World Series again for the second time. But I played baseball for 6 years. I wanted to play baseball into high school. I got cut from the team for being overweight and out of shape, which they told me. Then I joined the track and field team and did shot put instead. But I've always loved baseball. I literally talk about baseball every day of my life. And my brother and I, at least, are always talking about baseball because there's always stuff to talk about during the off season, like the LA Dodgers spending $1.2 billion this off season, which nope, not mad about, just a little bit mad about. Uh, but I've been a big baseball fan, and I think this is the third time that I've watched this movie. Love baseball movies. I think baseball is one of the best sports to make a movie out of because there's just like the drama of it that like those big singular moments stand out because it isn't a constantly moving game. You can build up to like this very specific moment and have something like really riding on it. I just think about the last play of like Major League and all the slow motion and everything and the drag bunt, just perfect. But this film obviously is biopic. I think it plays it safe comparatively to a lot of films that tackle racism. But I do think that they at least show enough of the ugliness for us to be able to empathize with Jackie Robinson. I think it's well made. It definitely has like a vintage look and feel to it. I think they really captured the period well.
Mhm.
Chadwick Boseman is great. And he has that big moment in the tunnel because he can't fight back. And yes, Harrison Ford's the one who steals the show a lot as Branch Dickey. And just it's so gruff. Which also to Joe's point, so Harrison Ford had Kingdom the Crystal Skull come out in 2008. Barely had anything come out over the next couple of years. He had Cowboys and Aliens in 2011, which wasn't the greatest. But 2013, outside of Paranoia, which had horrible reviews, he had this. He had Ender's Game, which he was a highlight of that film too. And let's not forget, he was in Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues as Mac
The
Tannen,
werewolf.
the
I forgot all about that.
Hyena Joe.
Oh, the
Where
hyena. In the middle of the night, my true colors are revealed.
See, I would have
I was
forgotten that just
dying
because
laughing.
everybody was in that movie.
Literally everybody was in that movie. They even had Kanye in that movie.
Someone described Kanye as looking like a wooden puppet, and ever since they said that, I could not get that because his performance is just so wooden. Like he literally, it's just his jaw moving. His
But-
eye not emotive at all.
I gotta rewatch that scene now.
There's a couple of standout like other supporting roles, and like you have for all of you Law and Order fans, Christopher Maloney plays Leo DeRocher.
He was good in this. I
He
thought.
was.
Chunk of the film. Lucas Black of
He was-
Tokyo Drift fame plays.
He was
Pee Wee
actually a
Herman.
standout to me.
Yep, he got a nice moment in here. Specifically, Andre Holland.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed as Wendell Smith, the journalist who's following him along. Hamish Linklater popping up as the paisan on the team, and then Alan Tudyk, Steve the Pirate, and Disney animation standout plays Ben Chapman, the extremely racist. Like he is the crux of the antagonist in this film because he is a bastard and he is terrible. But Alan Tudyk played it so well. It's such a far cry from him playing Wash in like Firefly, just like him coming out here playing this disgusting racist. But also, they felt targeted that they put that all on the Phillies as like the big racist team in the movie. But
Yeah, when they were talking about coming to Philadelphia, it took me a second. I was like, where are they going? Atlanta? Like, Deep South? No. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Going to
The
Philly.
crazy thing about that, though, if you really think about it, this is not just at that time. It's not just Philadelphia. It was really all the teams. So like the fact that it was singled out for Philly is kind of, I think it was kind of a low blow, if you ask me.
Well, I think the choice probably makes sense to be like it would have been easy if they went to a Southern team. But to point out like, hey, this is like a stalwart city of the North, and it's just like, nope, just as bad. But I think this is a real good movie. It's a good movie. It's not great, and it definitely does fall into that like Driving Miss Daisy, Green Book kind of lighter touch when it looks at racism. And but no, I think it works really well. I think it works well with the themes that it's trying to tackle, and I think it works well as a baseball movie. You definitely get to have some of those elements in terms of like the baseball. You don't get a ton of like baseball action in it, but it obviously so much of the film is based on the foundation of baseball and the history of baseball and how this was one of the most defining moments in the history of baseball. Because even today, just to add a little context, when people love debating who's the greatest of all time of any sports, I think the sport that they love to do it the most is probably basketball. Because I swear, I see a video of who's better, LeBron or MJ, literally every day. Somebody's arguing about it. But even with baseball, it's very interesting because there is that big conversation of like, how much do you have to take into account some of the players pre integration where it's just like they didn't have to play. They only played the best white players. Like Babe Ruth only played the best white pitchers. They only played against the best white players. And the Negro Leagues were a thing and had which also there was a great documentary that came out this year about the Negro Leagues called The League. Definitely worth checking out. But it's an interesting conversation because like how much context is still put on this integration and that divide of like pre Jackie Robinson and post Jackie Robinson in baseball. But
Now most of our best baseball players are coming from Japan and Dominican Republic. I mean, that's what makes the game great.
Well, if the Dodgers keep paying them so much money, they'll get every Japanese player to jump ship to America.
Funny enough, did you know Shohei Ohtani, he took something about a cut with his contract, and he took most of that money to donate to Japan for new equipment. I thought that was really
don't even get me started on the absurdity that is his contract.
It is very absurd, though. It's a lot of money. Basically, the Arizona Coyotes, they're a hockey team. Their whole franchise is worth, I think, $500 million, which is basically Shohei Ohtani's overall contract is more money than a whole hockey franchise in the NHL. It's ridiculous.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
But I guess, Jim, it looked like you were going to say something.
I was going to ask you where to watch The League, first of all. That was Questlove produced, right?
I'm going to check. I'm going to check if it's streaming anywhere. It might just be on VOD at this point.
Okay. It may be, because I do remember seeing ads for that, and I did want to see the Negro Leagues. There was, I learned from Ken Burns Baseball, there was a baseball adjacent race riot that happened in Philly I don't even remember the year, but it was early 20th century. So like Philly's definitely not. Here's what I say about Philly to people. Like most of the bad things people say about Philly are probably true, but there's a lot more to the city than that.
It's also got the benefit of time.
The history of baseball too. What's that about the time, Kevin?
Oh, and Philly's got the benefit of time on its side now, I'd say.
Right. Yeah. If you have enough of a buffer time wise, you can kind of look back on it a little bit differently. But I mean, it's a city that still has race issues. I was trying to think of a city that maybe doesn't. I don't think Philly is alone in that, but like
No.
there's a huge black population in Philadelphia, and we do have stars like Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard, for those kids to look up to. But like, there's still a lot of there's a lot of issues along the lines of race and class and poverty in Philadelphia that like we could talk for a whole other podcast about. You know what I mean? But primarily, yeah, I just wanted to echo the recommendation for the league because it looked really good, and I haven't even seen it yet.
It is on Hulu, so you could check it out on Hulu right now.
I wanted
Hulu's a good
to
place to check out documentaries, but
I wanted to ask I've only seen bits and pieces of this, but I wanted to see what you guys had to say. Have any of you seen the 1950 movie The Jackie Robinson Story, where he played himself and Ruby Dee played Rachel Robinson? I was gonna say if any of you had seen it, I wanted to know how you guys would compare this to how you would compare that one to 42.
I kind
I
of
wasn't
wanted
even
to
aware of
check it
that.
out. I like Ruby Dee as an actress.
I have
I
not
wasn't
seen it.
aware of that either.
But
Yeah.
I do find it interesting. It was an era for actual baseball players to be playing themselves in movies.
I was going to say, not just baseball players. A lot of people played themselves back then. You'd have like war heroes coming back from wars playing themselves.
Well, there was that one guy. Well, I mean, he didn't play himself. He played a fictional character.
Best Years
I
of
can't
Our
remember
Lives.
his name, but yeah. And then
Yeah.
I think he ended up winning the Oscar for that.
He won 2 Oscars for that because they gave him an honorary Oscar, and he won Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, I knew about Best Supporting Actor, but I didn't know about the honorary Oscar.
They were going to give him an honorary Oscar anyway, and then he won the actual Oscar too.
Oh,
Can
okay.
anybody confirm to me that Babe Ruth was in fact in the Sandlot?
No,
Dave's face.
because in that dream sequence, he's played by
Art LaFleur, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I'm just busting. I just love that scene.
Oh, okay.
Let's be real
True
here.
heroes
The-
never die.
I
Looking
thought
you
you
hot,
were
kid.
serious. I thought you were serious for a second.
The only true Babe Ruth adaptation on screen is John Goodman from the movie Babe.
The funny thing about that, when you were talking about how easy it is to cut film in baseball, like compared to like other sports, right? You took John Goodman and made him Babe Ruth. Like you just
Which I think that perpetuated the myth that Babe Ruth was some giant obese human being.
right?
He was not.
No,
He just was like
Vogelbach. He's more like
had a bit of a gut for the 1930s. Which, to be frank, Lou Gehrig was bigger than Babe Ruth because Lou Gehrig was built like a brick shithouse. Like he was a massive muscular man. But getting back to this movie in particular, I feel like definitely the performances, I think across the board were what really made this film work. And I think it has a nice like old school kind of feel. And I think Brian Helgeland is the kind of director that can bring that because him being involved with like LA Confidential and films like that, I think bringing that like vintage kind of feel to it makes 42 stand out in the way that it does. But yet, like, I can't say much to this film in terms of like narrative structure and like really like impressive cinematography and stuff like that. It's a pretty straightforward biopic.
Yeah.
And
I'd say you can't really fault it
no,
for
and
that.
there's definitely some moments with, they have that little kid in the stands having to explain to the audience what a balk is. Because generally, if you're not a baseball fan, you're not going to know what the hell a balk is. So, like, they used him and his mom to help, like, explain that exposition so people watching is like, why'd he just get to walk home? Kind of thing. But definitely Chadwick Boseman is so good in this. And his performance isn't showy. He does get that big moment. That was raw when he like screams in that
Yep.
tunnel. That was
Yeah.
like a visceral moment.
Yeah, as safe as this movie played it, I'd say the performances earned some of those moments.
Hmm.
That one definitely being a standout. And just generally everything with what was the character's name? Wendell Smith, the
Oh,
reporter.
the journalist. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked one of the lines that he kept saying in the movie, where he says, "You see that question coming at you slowly, like he's thinking of the ball coming at him slowly." I thought that was a good analogy,
Hmm.
and I enjoyed their chemistry with each other in the movie as well. I would say, I don't know if you guys would agree. I feel like the wife, Rachel Robinson, I feel like she was kind of a weak point in the movie for me, at least. At least narratively, I feel like she didn't have a lot to do. I enjoy the way they handled the racial tensions between the teams. Alan Tudyk definitely was a standout in that regard. And I like how they kept a lot of those tensions that Jackie was experiencing between the players for the most part. I think as a story element that worked pretty well.
Yeah, that jerk that wound up getting traded to the Pirates.
Yeah.
He's like, get the hell out of here. Um, I also wanted to throw out there because Dr. Cox is in this. John C. McGinley
Loved it.
has the announcer. It's like, he's such an old spook sounding kind of announcer.
He had a blast with this.
Yeah. And I just
I
feel
think that's a
like,
mid-Atlantic accent, right?
yep,
Yeah.
he 100% had a mid-Atlantic accent. The one that never actually existed.
That radio voice back then.
Yeah,
The
just
radio
made up.
lines that talk like that.
You mean the Katharine Hepburn?
The copy Imagine starting every podcast like this. We find our heroes.
In terms of Rachel Robinson, I think Nicole Burry, I liked her a lot. I think she's charismatic.
So did
I
I.
feel like they just used her specifically to be more of an aggressive individual when it comes to race. So like when she shamelessly just walks into the whites only
Yeah.
bathroom and just like,
That was a good moment.
and it just like, I feel like she was the one who was really trying, because like you had his wife pushing him to like stand up for himself, and then of course you have Branch Rickey who's just like, you can't fight back, and like trying to keep him like reined in and everything throughout the film. And I feel like that basically turned out to be her purpose, which
Yeah.
like she had no agency of her own as a character. She was there to be a particular force in Jackie's life, pushing one way, and then Branch Rickey pushing another way.
And
But
to be
like,
fair, I can see why they would do it that way. I
yeah.
think they were focusing more on his experiences on the field
Mhm.
than in his personal life. But I would have liked to have seen more of her.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to just add. I mean, I don't have any glowing things to say about the movie, but to its credit, it sticks to baseball Jackie Robinson, which might also be kind of a reason that holds it back.
Yeah.
There's no real character arc for him. We don't see any development really for him. He's pretty much a hero from beginning to end of the story, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So good on them for focusing it on baseball. But I mean, if this were like a Scorsese scale epic biopic from like, childhood to old age, maybe it would have given us a little more satisfying character development from Jackie Robinson. But most people aren't interested in what he had to do outside of baseball, I think.
Yeah, I'd say it was overall a serviceable way to do it.
Which is also interesting that Jim, you brought up and we lost Jim. The Jim brought up where he didn't really have an arc. He was a hero from start to finish. I know that was one of the biggest criticisms of Black Panther, the movie, where like, did T'Challa really have an arc? But Chadwick Boseman can take a character like that and breathe so much life into them
Yeah.
and
That's
make them
one thing I
interesting to
appreciate.
watch, which is why I feel like he was so important for this movie because you needed somebody to be able to anchor that performance and get something out of it.
Mhm.
But overall, it's a fine movie. It's a generally an easy watch.
Yeah.
It's a little over 2 hours. It's on Max, so if anybody wants to go check it out. But I guess were there any other things that really stood out to everybody that they wanted to bring up?
Yeah, just to expand on what you were just getting into a little bit about the performances, I did appreciate that for the most part, especially with Chadwick Boseman. I felt like he was truly the highlight. He kept it pretty grounded
Mhm.
performance-wise. It didn't feel like you were watching this huge, epic Hollywoodization of a human being. And I got that from most of the side characters as well in the movie. Things were just overall pretty grounded. It was a well balanced movie, but that's one thing I actually did really appreciate about it.
Mhm. Anything else? To be honest, I was a little worried coming into this one because a lot of the other films that we've done on the movie club, there's a lot more depth and complexity to them. This is probably one of the most straightforward films that we've done, to be honest. And we add a little bit of color and filler in with like our perspectives on baseball and stuff like that. But I started ranking all the movies that we've watched on the movie club for me personally, and this is like way towards the bottom.
Wow.
It's a fine
It
film.
was fairly
It's just a
straightforward.
matter of we've watched a lot of great films for the movie
Right.
club.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of level, and it's very interesting because some of the other movies that we were looking at potentially, like Prisoners and Wolf of Wall Street, it's like there's a lot more meat to like really dig into. But you know what? It was nice having a film like this to, you know, watch, appreciate, and have some fun with.
Well, it
Yeah.
kind of
I'd
also
say
reminds me
that.
too of
Yeah.
like how when it comes to movies, like you kind of have like a lot of critics have to watch everything. So I think in some ways it's good to have variety.
I'd say I can't really fault the movie. I just don't think it was excellent.
Mhm.
It was good. It was competent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that's the end for our conversation here on 42. But thank you from Kevin, from Joe, from Jim, from Vinny, and from Shane here on the Development Hell Podcast. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Development Hell Podcast.